Hey guys, Mysterious Freaking Man back with another freaking video. These are my favorite weapons in Dark Souls. Not necessarily the most powerful, best weapons, but the most fun weapons, in my opinion. Here we freaking go. Number 10 is Avalon. Now I can already hear you guys crying. Mysterious Man, we can't afford to pay for all those bolts because it takes 3 bolts per shot. Wah, wah. Well, you know, you guys are just poor. Number 10 is Avalon. Number 9 is the friggin' Notched Whip. Not a super powerful weapon by itself, but it's a good secondary weapon. You know, do a lot of damage to them with a sword or a friggin' axe of some sort. And then once they're low health, you pull out the Notched Whip because it eats through their shield. And it can't be parried, and it also has a bleed buildup effect on it, which is pretty freaking cool. Number 8 is the Great Scythe. If you know what you're doing, this weapon can be obtained really early in the game. It's super powerful, only requires 14 strength, 14 dex, only weighs 5 pounds. It's pretty much the perfect weapon. Number 7 is the freaking Dragon Tooth. It's a very predictable weapon, not recommended for PvP due to its predictability, easily punished, but it's really fun for PvE, and I don't know, it's super powerful. That's the appeal of this weapon. It's really fun, just running around squashing everyone like bugs. So that's number 3 and 7. Number 6 is the Gravelord Sword. Not a super powerful weapon, but it's really fun to use. Has a good move set. Another weapon that can be obtained very early in the game if you know what you're doing. I actually made another video where it took me about 17 minutes or so to get the Gravelord Sword. But you do have to be familiar with the Tomb of the Giants, and you have to be able to move around in there in the dark if you want to be able to get this sword early in the game. So that's number 6. Number 5 is the Dragon King Great Axe, another weapon that can be obtained very early in the game if you know what you're doing. Has an AoE attack for its two-handed R2 attack. Very powerful weapon. Probably the only disadvantage to this weapon is the fact that it requires 34 strength. But there's a way you can sort of nullify that disadvantage, and I'll get to that later in the video. Number 4 is the Large Club, another one of those weapons where it's just fun running around squashing people like bugs. Has a poison buildup effect, A scaling in strength. So what's not to love? Another great, extremely powerful weapon. That's number friggin' 4, the Large Club. Number 3 is the Iato. Of course, you have to have a katana in a Dark Souls top weapons list because katanas are notoriously overpowered in these games. A lot of people hate them for that reason. I don't care. I say use whatever you want. Use whatever you think is fun to use. And this weapon is definitely fun to use. It has a great move set. I definitely prefer its move set over the Uchi Katana. It's quick. It's strong. Obviously, being a katana, it has a bleed build-up effect. Just an all-around great weapon. Number 2 is the Black Knight Great Axe. Unbelievably powerful relative to its speed. All you have to do, and the moveset is awesome too. All you have to do is make sure that they're kind of on your right side a little bit. You don't even have to lock on to anyone. You just make sure they're a little bit to your right. R1, boom, they're dead. It's so free and powerful. So that's number 2. The number 1 most fun weapon to use in Dark Souls, in my opinion, is Grant. I know that's not a very typical choice, but let me explain my strategy. I start by using the Dragon King Great Axe. I buff it with Sunlight Blade, and then when the buff fades off, I live switch out to Grant. This works pretty well because the Dragon King Great Axe and Grant have similar requirements. They have the same weight, and they have the same strength requirements. Grant also has a faith requirement, yet cannot be buffed, and so doing this sort of nullifies the disadvantages of both weapons, and it also gives me a ton of AoE attacks to work with. I also want to talk about some weapons that I think are pretty overrated. I know I'm going to get yelled at a lot for this, but I really hate the weapon Lucerne. I don't know why it's friggin' loved so much. Everyone's like, oh, it's so strong! But in my opinion, I mean, I don't know if I'm using it wrong or what, but in my opinion, it's a very weak, very slow weapon. Short range, has a terrible moveset. If you're gonna use Lucerne, use the Great Scythe, use friggin' the normal halberd, use the Gargoyle halberd, use the Black Knight halberd. There's a million other better weapons out there that do everything Lucerne does, but better. Two other weapons that I hate are the Black Knight sword, probably the worst Black Knight weapon, and also the Zweihander. And I know I'm going to get a lot of crap for saying that, but there's literally no reason to use either of those weapons when the Claymore does everything they do, but better, basically. The Zweihander especially does not put out enough damage relative to its slow speed. And also from the Freudian perspective, the reason you guys love those big swords so much, those big black swords, and that big giant sword, the Zweihander, the reason you love those swords so much is because you have tiny penises. And using those swords is the only way that you can feel like you have a big penis for once in your life. So, that's all I wanted to say. Figured I'd throw that out there. And you guys are a bunch of fags with tiny penises. Thanks for watching.